Hey everyone, welcome back. The threads I picked today are short reads, but they hit hard. Grab something to drink, subscribe if you haven't, and let's get into the first one. I realized my sister has been following my husband for 3 years. I found a note under our car yesterday, and everything makes sense now. What starts as a story about coincidence spirals into something far darker. OP has been trying to piece together how her sister managed to follow her across 3 cities, until certain details stopped making any sense at all. The connections were too perfect, the timing too convenient. I'm going to try to explain this clearly, even though it sounds insane. My sister has somehow managed to be in every single city my husband, 33 male, and I, 30 female, have moved to over the past 3 years. When we announced a move, she'd call months later with her own news. A new job, a relationship restart, just a fresh beginning. I never questioned it. We were close growing up. Then I started noticing things that didn't add up. She knew details about our neighborhood we'd never mentioned. Which grocery store we shopped at, which gym my husband went to, our favorite coffee shop, his work schedule, better than I knew it sometimes. When I asked her how she knew these things, her answers were vague and nervous. Last week, I found a folder on our shared family cloud account labeled with my husband's initials. Inside were dozens of photographs. Photos of our house from different angles. Photos of my husband leaving the gym. Photos of him entering his office building. Some taken at night, with timestamps from months ago. That's when I realized this wasn't random. This was deliberate. This was planned. And yesterday, I found the note under my husband's car. But that note, that's what changed everything. So OP goes back through it all, those early days replaying in her head over and over on an endless loop. Every moment that had seemed innocent and easily explained suddenly had a completely different, deeply sinister shape to it now. She was seeing everything through new eyes. The vague answers that she'd accepted at face value, the nervous pauses before she spoke, the evasiveness that OP had dismissed as normal sibling weirdness, sisterly concern gone wrong back then. My sister always seemed to know things about our life. She'd text about which grocery store we shopped at, mention knowing my husband went to that gym on 5th Street, know which coffee shop was our favorite before we'd even mentioned it to her. When I asked how she knew this stuff, her answers were always vague and evasive. "Oh, I saw it on Instagram." But we never posted that. Or, "Someone told me," but never who. "I was in the area," but for what reason? Why would she randomly be in our neighborhood? Every answer had a nervous edge, a pause before she responded, like she was scrambling to come up with something plausible. She'd get quiet when pressed. She'd change the subject and laugh it off. I'd told myself I was being paranoid, reading into nothing, but it bothered me. I started replaying conversations. Which gym was my husband going to? How would she know which one? The grocery store, the neighborhood layout, which side of the street our coffee shop was on, the dog park a few blocks away we'd mentioned wanting to visit but never actually did. I never told her about it. My husband didn't either. She couldn't possibly know that unless she'd been there exploring, unless she was watching us. And that's when OP's stomach dropped. That's when all the scattered dots finally connected in a way she couldn't unsee. That's when she realized she didn't just suspect it anymore. She knew for certain, without question, that her sister was watching them. And that's when OP pulled back the curtain. I accessed our family cloud account that evening, looking for old photos my mom had mentioned. That's when I saw it. One folder, labeled with just my husband's initials, J.M. sitting right there in the shared space. I opened it. I shouldn't have, but I did. Inside were hundreds of photographs, not dozens, hundreds. Photos of our house from every angle, front door, side gate, back window, shots from across the street, from the park 2 blocks away, from angles I still can't place. Coverage you don't get by accident. Then the photos of him. My husband, 33 male, leaving our apartment, getting into his car, entering his office building downtown, leaving the gym, every single one time-stamped, going back 6 months minimum before I even noticed anything off. The ones that made me sick were the nighttime shots. Long exposure photos from across the street after dark, him visible in our bedroom window. Our living room with lights on, him on the couch. Not casual observations, these were planned. Professional angles, proper exposure for darkness, focus dialed in. I just sat there, trying to understand what deliberate means when it's documented across hundreds of images spanning half a year. The comment section understood immediately what had shifted. That note has me absolutely chilled. The fact that she slipped it under his car? That's someone who believes they have legitimate business confronting him. Your sister is operating in a completely different reality. Another caught the real danger. This is textbook pre-violence stalking behavior. The note is the escalation point. Document everything from here on out, because if she escalates further, you'll need a complete timeline for police and prosecutors. And when OP responded, the full conspiracy clicked into place. The coordination with the ex is what gets me. This isn't one person's delusion, this is two people actively reinforcing each other's false narrative. That's far more dangerous than solo stalking because they've built an entire justification system. OP came back with an update. And this is where the deliberate coordination becomes impossible to deny. She found out where I work. The police said I need cameras everywhere now. I don't even know where to begin. I remembered she used to use the same password for everything back in college. I logged into her Instagram and found the messages, dozens of them, with her ex-boyfriend from college. He was in on it from the start. They were literally coordinating. Screenshots of my husband's photos, discussions about evidence they could manufacture, building a narrative that he was some kind of predator, grooming witnesses, creating stories about a college girlfriend who was suddenly going to come forward with accusations. They had a plan, an actual plan to destroy him. The ex kept saying things like, "If we plant this seed now, people will believe it." My hands were literally shaking when I read it. But then 2 days ago, someone called my office, asked for me specifically, claimed to be verifying my employment. Yesterday, my boss mentioned a woman came by asking about me. When I asked what she looked like, my heart just stopped. It was my sister. The comments lit up immediately. "Please tell me you've saved all of this. Every screenshot, every photo from the folder, every message. Your lawyer needs everything. This is federal harassment territory and possibly conspiracy charges. OP, more than that, check if she's accessed any of your accounts. Check your credit reports, your bank statements, your medical records. People this invested in building a case sometimes start identity theft as a way to prove things about the target. Also, change every password and enable two-factor authentication everywhere. I'm sorry, but tracking someone across 3 states and documenting their movements is not about protecting anyone. That's predatory behavior dressed up in concern language. Your sister needs psychiatric evaluation." So, I did what I had to do. She found out where I work. The police said I need cameras everywhere now. When I confronted her with my husband and parents, she didn't deny it. She just cried and said she was protecting me. Protecting me from my husband. She'd been talking to my college ex for years. He'd convinced her my husband was hiding something dark. That's when I realized my sister and my ex had stayed in contact the whole time, filling her head with accusations. The restraining order came quickly. The police said we needed cameras everywhere, but my sister didn't stop. Months passed and letters kept arriving. New accounts, new email addresses, claiming she had evidence that she was saving me. My husband became paranoid, checking under the car, watching over his shoulder. We started couples therapy. Then I found the letter. She'd figured out where I work, where my husband works. The letter was the same refrain, new evidence, saving me from a mistake. Police upgraded the case and we started talking about filing additional charges. But the contact never stopped. Emails from different accounts, phone numbers, packages with the photos she'd taken, labeled, dated, like exhibits. The comment section on that update had the question everyone wanted answered. The fact that she had access to his location data through family sharing is genuinely terrifying. What other access points does she have? Has she tried to access his accounts directly? And that's the terrifying part about obsession masquerading as care. My sister probably still believes she's helping. When someone loves you so hard they stop seeing you as a person. When you become a problem to solve, a life to manage, a threat to eliminate. That kind of conviction doesn't stop just because a judge says it must. It adapts. It finds new accounts, new methods, new ways to keep proving it was right all along. Some versions of love are harder to escape than hate ever could be. And on to the next one. I think my mother is slowly poisoning my father with quote-unquote home remedies, and I have proof. A story that starts with routine family care and ends somewhere far darker, when a daughter discovers exactly what her mother has been doing behind closed doors. I'm a 28 female, and I need to tell someone about this because I'm honestly starting to lose my mind. My dad has had cardiac issues for years. He's on metoprolol and a few other heart medications that his cardiologist prescribed. For the past year, I've been the one helping him refill his weekly pill organizer because my mom is wellness obsessed. I wanted to make sure he was getting the right doses. Last week, I noticed something off. The pills in the Thursday and Friday slots looked completely different from the ones I'd put in. Different color, different shape. I checked the medication bottles. They were still full. The original prescriptions were untouched. So I started paying closer attention to what was actually happening. When I looked closer, the pills aren't his prescriptions at all. My mother has been taking his medication out and replacing it with a homemade mixture she packed directly into the dispenser slots. Turmeric, high-dose B vitamins, garlic powder, 5 different herbal blends I don't even recognize. She packed them loose in the compartments, replacing his actual cardiac medication with her home remedies. I've been staring at this dispenser for 3 days, trying to convince myself I'm reading this wrong, but I'm not. My father has no idea what he's actually taking. He swallows the pills thinking they're his prescriptions, the medication his cardiologist prescribed to keep his heart stable. He's been taking this herbal mixture for weeks at minimum, maybe longer. I don't know exactly how long because I haven't been helping with the refills in a couple months. My mother has had plenty of time to do this without my knowledge. And that's the hook. A mother so completely convinced of her wellness philosophy that she's decided the best way to care for her husband is to replace his life-saving medication with her vision of what real health should look like. From there, everything OP thought was routine caregiving spirals into something dark that keeps her up at night. So OP did what you'd do. She confronted her mother directly about what she'd found in the medication dispenser. When I confronted her, she didn't even deny it. She said she'd been helping Dad's heart the natural way because pharmaceuticals are poison. For over a year, she'd been replacing his metoprolol with her blend of turmeric, B vitamins, garlic powder, and herbs. I pulled up Dad's health history. About 14 months ago, right when his last check said he was fine, he started mentioning chest tightness and fatigue. His blood pressure crept up. I'd logged it all. He was getting worse. The timeline matched perfectly with when she started. I researched the interactions. Turmeric reduces metoprolol's effectiveness. High-dose B vitamins interfere with cardiac medication absorption. Garlic supplements are contraindicated with heart drugs. This wasn't harmless spices. This was a direct chemical intervention against his prescription. But what made me shake? I found her Google searches in the browser history. Does turmeric interact with metoprolol? She'd search that. Garlic supplement heart medication side effects? That too. Searches from months into her substitutions. She didn't act on wellness belief alone. She researched the interactions and did it anyway. That single conversation cracked everything wide open. Not just what had happened, but the terrible implication of how deliberate it might have been. OP spent the next hours digging through everything she could verify. The timeline of her father's steady decline, the pharmacology, the pattern. The pieces fit together perfectly, and it made her sick. So OP finally asks her dad directly. This is where things get really complicated. I sat down with Dad in his bedroom while Mom was out. I just needed to hear it from him. Have you noticed anything different about how you feel? I asked. He took a long time answering. Worse, actually. More tired. Sometimes my chest feels tight in ways it didn't before. He looked at me like he was admitting a failure. But your mother said the supplements would take time to work. She said Big Pharma poisons people, and what she's giving me is natural healing. My stomach dropped. He knew something was wrong and he still trusted her. I explained what I'd found: the turmeric, the garlic powder, the B vitamins at doses that interact badly with his cardiac meds. He looked shocked, then sad, then almost relieved. Like finally someone was naming the thing that scared him. "She says she's helping me," he said quietly. And that's when I realized the worst part. She probably believes that. Mom has always been obsessed with natural health. She sends me articles about how Big Pharma is poisoning America. She's convinced that synthetic medicine is the enemy and that love means saving people from it. When I tried to show her the interaction data, she dismissed it. "Those studies are funded by pharmaceutical companies. I'm trying to keep your father alive." This isn't stupidity. This is someone so deep in a belief system that poisoning someone has become an act of love. Or maybe it's calculated, and the wellness ideology is just her cover story. I still can't tell which terrifies me more. The comment section zeroed in on that exact question. "This is absolutely horrifying. Your mom knowingly mixed supplements that interfere with heart medication. That's not wellness, that's poisoning. Please don't feel bad about reporting her to APS." Has your dad considered that the reason she was researching interactions is because she wanted to pick supplements that would cause problems? The fact that she looked it up specifically is really unsettling to think about. The answer came a few days later in a browser history. OP came back with proof in hand. The real twist landed hard. My dad moved out, and I finally got the full story. So I needed to find actual proof. I couldn't just confront her with my suspicions. She'd deny everything like she always does. I started looking through the shared family tablet, the one nobody really monitors. That's when I found it. Her browser history, full of searches. Does turmeric interfere with metoprolol? Garlic supplement, cardiac medication side effects. Can B vitamins cause heart palpitations? She didn't just do this by accident. She looked this up. She knew exactly what those supplements could do to someone on cardiac meds. She researched it, and she did it anyway. When I showed Dad the searches, something in him just broke. He kept saying, she knew, over and over. He moved out that same week. He's staying with me now and already looking better. His color's back, he's eating again. The doctors say his levels are stabilizing. There's no permanent organ damage, thank God. I reported it to Adult Protective Services. They opened an investigation. Mom's cycling through denial and anger, and honestly, I think she's gone deeper into her wellness community where everyone just validates her. In her mind, I'm the villain for not understanding her love. Comments on this one hit different. "I'm sorry, but your mom sounds controlling, not just misguided. Isolating your dad from you and your brother, refusing to accept he needed medical care, lying to him about what she was giving him. That's abuse." Exactly. Even if the supplement mixing was genuinely misguided, the isolation and lying about it crosses way past wellness mom territory. That's textbook coercive control. The research was also strategic. She wasn't just casually browsing, she was specifically looking up interactions. The search history is the smoking gun. She looked up the interactions. She knew what she was doing. I'm so glad your dad is safe now. I'm trying to stay focused on Dad's recovery and the APS investigation. But honestly, some days, I'm grieving what my mom never understood. That you don't hurt someone to care for them. She's lost her marriage and probably both her kids because she couldn't accept that I get to exist outside her vision of what health means. And here's where things land for OP. Dad's safe. Legal action in motion. But the cost of her mother's twisted devotion will echo for a long time. The aftermath came faster than OP expected. Her father finally found out what was happening, and the pieces started falling into place all at once. My dad moved out, and I finally got the full story. I keep going back to that moment when I told him everything. He went completely still. Not angry, just quiet in a way that scared me more. He confronted Mom that same night, and she didn't even deny it. She said she was trying to save him from the poison the doctors were feeding him. Dad moved out 3 days later. He's staying with me now. He didn't fight her on anything, just packed a bag and left. He's talking to a lawyer about separating, and honestly, I think Mom knows it's over too. She's just refusing to acknowledge it. I filed an Adult Protective Services report. They did blood work and organ function tests on Dad. His kidney levels are slightly elevated, but nothing permanent. The cardiologist said if this had gone on much longer, it could have been different, but he's lucky. That word, lucky, made me feel sick. The worst part? Mom doesn't see any of this as wrong. Last week, I found her in a Discord for natural health advocates. She was showing screenshots of her posts, and people were calling her a hero for standing up to Big Pharma. They were celebrating what she did to my father. She found a community that validated poisoning him. The comment section on that post did what it always does. Held a mirror up to the thing OP couldn't look at directly. This is why people need to understand that natural doesn't mean safe. Hemlock is natural. Arsenic is found in nature. Your mom could have killed him. And here's what stayed with me about all of this. Love can be weaponized. Someone can wrap poison in care and feed it to you with both hands. That's the unbearable truth at the center of all this. Not that her mother is evil, but that she believed she was being kind. And that belief didn't stop her from doing harm. On to the next one. I discovered my girlfriend has been tracking me for months. When I confronted her, she lied. Then I found files on 5 other people. This one starts where a lot of these stories start, with a small detail that doesn't add up. A boyfriend scrolling through his phone, looking for something innocent, finding something that changes everything. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. And once you understand what it means, you can't go back. I'm 28 male, and I've been with my girlfriend, 32 female, for 3 years now. We've been pretty happy, or so I thought. She's always been kind of overprotective. Always wanted to know where I was, what I was doing, who I was with. If I stayed late at work, she'd text. If I went out for drinks with friends, she'd ask when I'd be back. I figured that was just how she loved me, that she cared enough to keep me safe. Last week, I was scrolling through my phone settings looking for something unrelated when I saw an app I didn't recognize, Location Share, not an app I'd ever downloaded. I tapped into it and my stomach dropped. My location was being tracked in real time. Not just current location, 6 months of full history. Every place I'd been, time-stamped, mapped out. Every single moment accounted for. I showed her immediately, asked why she had me tracked. She denied it completely. Said it was a system update, that I was being paranoid. Even when I showed her the app and the data, she kept insisting I was wrong, that I was crazy. But the proof was right there. Then it all clicked. Every comment about why I took a certain route home, every time she knew I'd been somewhere before I mentioned it, all those questions about why I was late, who I was with, every moment I'd felt like she somehow knew something she shouldn't. She literally did. She had tracked it all. And that's the moment everything shifted. His entire 3-year relationship snapped into a different shape. Not devotion, control. But he still didn't know the worst part, not yet. So I dug deeper that night, and what I found was far worse than a single tracking app monitoring my location. I spent that night going through the location history. 6 months, April to October, every day mapped out, every cafe, gym session, every route home, documented, time-stamped, cataloged. And then it clicked. Every comment she'd made suddenly made sinister sense. Why were you at Starbucks so long? She knew exactly how long. Why'd you take that route home instead? She'd seen my path. You went to the mall without telling me? She'd watched it happen. These weren't confused questions. They were tests, accusations dressed as concern. She was building a case, collecting evidence of my untrustworthiness to justify keeping me under control. I realized I'd been living in a cage for months without knowing it. Every deviation from her expected pattern was logged. Every explanation I gave could be fact-checked with her phone. I'd surrendered my privacy, my autonomy, my freedom. Everything I did was filtered through her surveillance first, my judgment second. That night I understood. This wasn't love. Love doesn't track. Love doesn't test. This was control. And I'd been so deep in it, I'd forgotten what freedom felt like. The precision was what got me. Not just knowing where I was, but knowing how long I stayed. Knowing my exact routes. Being able to cross-reference every place I'd been against every question she'd asked me over the past year. All those little accusations, all those moments I doubted myself. They weren't about confusion on her end. They were about control. And that's when everything shifted. He finally saw it clearly. But this is where the realization becomes unavoidable. Here, I made a timeline of the last 6 months. Every location ping, every "where are you" text, every comment she made about where I went. The coffee shop 3 towns over. The route I took to avoid traffic. All of it in that app, real time. Then I went through our old conversations. Every comment that suddenly made sense. Why did you take the long way home? Why were you at that part of town? She wasn't guessing. She was checking. She could see every move I made. I thought about all the times I felt guilty for deviating from my story. All the times she'd comment on my choices like she had the right to audit my life. I blamed myself, but I was being watched. The worst part? Our entire relationship was built on her having this control. She'd pick fights when my location didn't match my story. She'd get angry when I went somewhere unexpected. Now I understand. She had a spreadsheet. She had dates. She had proof of every deviation. This isn't love. This is a cage, and I've been in it for 3 years without knowing the bars were there. Reddit absolutely confirmed what OP was feeling. That spreadsheet alone is nightmare fuel. Have you talked to a lawyer about a restraining order? Those emails are documentation of intentional control. I would lose my mind finding out someone had all this information on me. The fact that she's tracked 5 people is insane. Please document everything and show it to your therapist. One commenter asked a question that made OP's blood run cold. The fact that she had the same files on multiple people is the scariest part. Have you considered she might have started tracking people before they were even in relationships with her? That's what haunts me most. When I looked at the dates, some folders go back 8 years. I don't know if she started before they dated her or after, but the ex who contacted me mentioned she'd shown up at his apartment to check on him when he explicitly said he didn't want to see her. He thinks she followed him there. I genuinely don't know how many people she's tracked or for how long, but worse was still to come. 1 week later, the update post dropped. OP had found the laptop. He'd found the files. I finally found out why she had files on 5 other people. The pattern is darker than I thought. I need to be careful because there's police involvement now, but I found her laptop while she was showering. My hands are shaking. Folder labeled with my name. 6 months of location screenshots. Every day documented. But that wasn't the worst part. Other folders, my ex's name, another ex from years ago, a name I didn't recognize, 4 more besides mine, each with the same pattern. Location history, timestamps, screenshots going back different lengths of time. Then a spreadsheet. She'd marked certain days in red, incidents, she called them. Times I deviated from expected patterns, when my location didn't match what she thought. I found her therapist emails. Not a treatment plan, she was trying to convince them of something. One line made me feel like I couldn't breathe. I need to help him understand he can't be trusted with his own decisions. She wasn't worried about me, trying to justify, to frame all of it as help. I packed without thinking, left, got to a hotel and called the police again. Comments zeroed in on what OP was only beginning to understand. He wasn't the first. The fact that she admitted to tracking your exes means you have documentation. Screenshot everything and take it to the police again. Multiple victims changes this from civil to criminal. This is literally stalking across multiple people. I know the first officer didn't take it seriously, but that was a mistake. Go back with the evidence from all the victims together. That's serial harassment. You're absolutely right. The first officer treated it like relationship drama. But if OP goes back with screenshots from 5 different people and the spreadsheet, that's a completely different case. Pattern evidence across multiple victims is what makes this serious enough for a detective to actually investigate. And that's when things shifted from, my girlfriend betrayed me, to something darker, something systemic. OP wasn't the first, and the question became, how many others didn't even know they were marked? What came next wasn't justice, it was a pattern. I finally found out why she had files on 5 other people. The pattern is darker than I thought. 2 weeks after I left, I got a message from a throwaway account. It was her ex, Not one of the recent ones, we're talking 8 years ago. He said he'd recognized the pattern the moment I posted. Said he'd also had the tracking, also had the gaslighting, also had the folder on her laptop. He didn't know about the others either until my post brought it together. I started digging. Police records, a 2016 restraining order, a 2018 protection order, a 2021 incident report, 4 separate men across a decade. Same MO every time. Tracking, isolation, jealousy framed as care, folders documenting every movement. One of them had been diagnosed with PTSD from it. She'd convinced her therapist that she was helping them see they couldn't be trusted with their own decisions. She wasn't a jilted ex with one victim. She was a predator with a pattern. I wasn't special. I was just the current target. I'm in therapy now. Contacted the FBI. They're looking into whether this qualifies under federal stalking laws. She's still out there. She still has her job. She still has access to people. I don't know how many others don't realize they're caged yet. Comments stuck with me on this one. The therapist thing is wild. She's convinced herself she's helping you, which makes her dangerous. She genuinely might not see it as wrong. That's the scariest kind of abuser. The therapist thing is wild. She's convinced herself she's helping you, which makes her dangerous. She genuinely might not see it as wrong. That's the scariest kind of abuser. Yeah, that's the part that keeps me up. Because she's not doing this out of malice. She's convinced she's saving us from ourselves. That's not someone you can reason with. That's someone who doesn't think she's doing anything wrong. And that's what makes stories like this stay with you. A, 28 male, thought he knew his girlfriend. A, 32 female, thought she was helping. The truth was somewhere darker. A woman who'd convinced herself that control was care and had done it to 5 people in 10 years. Some of them still don't know why they're afraid of being followed. On to the next one. I'm and my coworker won't stop licking my elbow when no one's watching, and everyone's acting like I'm crazy. Sometimes violations arrive in the strangest packaging, absurd enough that you start questioning whether it even happened. This story starts with one of those moments. I'm and I work retail at a mid-sized clothing store. Pays the bills while I figure things out. Store's been around 5 years, management's relaxed. I work evenings and weekends with rotating coworkers. There's this guy, call him Derek, who's been there forever. Probably one of the longest tenured employees. Seemed like a harmless older guy who tells bad jokes and complains about his back. Everyone liked him. 3 months ago, we were both on a slow afternoon shift. I was in the stock room pulling winter stock when he came in, completely alone. He walked up behind me and without any warning, licked my elbow. Just licked it, like it was nothing. I froze. My elbow was wet. He was standing there smiling like he'd done something funny, said something about elbows being weird, then walked out. I stood there trying to process it. Did that really happen? Yes, clearly. And then it hit me. That wasn't random or impulsive. He came into that stockroom specifically to do this. He did it when nobody could see. He planned the timing. That's when I realized this wasn't some joke. This was deliberate. That certainty that this wasn't accidental would define everything that came next. But that first incident wasn't a one-off. Not even close. It started happening again about a week later. I was restocking in the back room and he just licked my elbow again. Walked away laughing before I could even react. I started keeping track after that because I needed to know if I was losing my mind. By the end of the 3rd week, it had happened 14 times. 14! Some days he'd do it twice. Once in the stockroom when we were alone, then again in the break room where no one else goes that early. The worst part was not knowing when it was coming. Every time I turned around, I'd flinch. My whole body braced for it. And I couldn't tell anyone because who would take that seriously? I'd sound insane. My coworker licks my elbow. But the real question eating at me was whether I was overreacting. Maybe it was just some weird older guy humor I didn't get. Maybe it was harmless and I was being dramatic. I kept replaying everything, trying to convince myself it wasn't as bad as it felt. Except every time it happened, my entire body locked up and I felt sick. So naturally, when you're dealing with something like that, something that makes you feel insane just thinking about it, you start looking for validation. You need someone to tell you you're not crazy. So OP tried talking to people, I mentioned it to a couple coworkers first, hoping someone would say this was weird. Instead, I got laughter. One said he was just trying to make me laugh and I was being uptight. Another said I needed thicker skin. When I pushed back, they'd roll their eyes or joke about my discomfort. I decided to loop in my manager. I went to her office and explained that this coworker kept touching me without permission. She told me he was harmless with a weird sense of humor. She said plenty of people joke around like that and I shouldn't make such a big deal out of it. When I pushed back, she got annoyed and told me if I couldn't take a little horseplay, maybe retail wasn't right for me. Horseplay. Like what he was doing was some kind of game. After that, I stopped telling people. But the fact that no one took it seriously started making me question everything. Was I being dramatic? Was it actually that bad? He's in his 50s and everyone acts like he's harmless. Maybe I was the problem. That's what got in my head the worst. Not the touching, but confirmation from everyone that I was crazy for being upset. And he kept doing it. 2-3 times a week in the stock room, the break room, once by the registers. Each time fewer people around. More isolation. The comment section understood. This is 100% sexual harassment. You are not overreacting. The fact that he specifically does this when you're alone and stops when others are around proves he knows it's inappropriate. You did the right thing reporting him. You are not the asshole. Full stop. Your body is yours. You asked him to stop. He refused and called you dramatic. That's on him. I hope your company actually does something about this. Have any coworkers actually witnessed him doing this, or are they just noticing weird behavior? Without a direct witness, HR might say it's he said, she said. Do you have any documentation? No one's seen him do it because he's careful, only alone. But I mentioned it to 2 coworkers and they confirmed he's been hovering weirdly around me. One remembered him joking to someone about how he likes to tease me. I kept texts where he joked about me banning him from my space, showing he knows I'm uncomfortable and finds it amusing. But that wouldn't change what came next. So OP finally confronted him. Here's where it got worse. He's gone, and HR told me I wasn't the first one. I finally did it. Cornered him in the stockroom after my shift on Friday and told him point blank, stop. I know you're doing it on purpose and it makes me deeply uncomfortable. He laughed and said, wow, dramatic much? When I said harassment, he got defensive, called me too sensitive for this job, and said, maybe retail isn't right for someone this upset over nothing. That's when it hit me. He genuinely didn't think he'd done anything wrong. He wasn't pretending not to understand my boundaries. He actually didn't recognize he'd violated them. The casual dismissal, the way he implied I was the problem for not laughing along, it was like talking to a brick wall. I reported him to HR Monday anyway. They called me in that afternoon. I wasn't the first. 3 other women had filed complaints over 5 years. 3. And somehow he never faced actual consequences. They said they'd investigate, but he quit before they could. Just walked in Tuesday and said he was done. The comment section cut straight to it. Please update us on what HR does. I'm genuinely worried they'll minimize this or side with him. The "it's just a joke" defense is how these guys get away with everything for decades. I plan to follow up. I'm not letting this drop. Found out the company got complaints for years and did nothing. That makes me angry. Document everything. Save those texts he sent about teasing you. Write down dates and times of incidents. Keep a copy of your HR complaint. Even 25-year employees can be fired for harassment. He's 100% going to use the "that's how my generation jokes" excuse. Don't let that slide. He's old enough to understand consent and personal boundaries. Exactly. The generational thing is the oldest manipulation tactic. A 50-something-year-old man knows what stop means. He's banking on HR being hesitant to act against someone with 25 years tenure, and on her being young enough to doubt herself. That's the whole strategy. But there was a darker truth underneath. So OP took the step nobody wants to take. Filing a complaint against someone entrenched, there for years. Here's what came next. He's gone, and HR told me I wasn't the first one. I spent 2 days after confronting him deciding whether to file. 19 years old, facing someone who'd been at the company for 25. What if HR sided with him? What if they thought I was being dramatic? What if I got fired for making trouble? But I kept thinking about his hands. How many times they touched me without permission. The elbow, yes, but also my shoulder, my back when nobody was looking. How I froze instead of running. How that freezing, that moment where I went completely still, was something he was counting on. A 19-year-old will freeze. She won't run. I filed the complaint on a Thursday with dates and times, every incident I could remember, 34 times over 3 months. I walked in expecting dismissal. Instead, the HR rep just nodded, took notes, didn't make me feel stupid. 2 weeks later, she called me in. He's gone. They let him resign because he was cooperative when confronted. He didn't even try to deny it. Then she told me something that gutted me. I wasn't the first. There were 2 others, years ago, both younger, both quit because nothing happened. That's the thing about gaslighting. It doesn't just mess with your head in the moment, it erases you from the record. When everyone treats a violation like a joke, when someone violating you acts like nothing happened, you start thinking maybe you're wrong to remember. Maybe you're overreacting. By the time you realize you weren't crazy, there's a voice telling you nobody will believe you anyway. I had to fight through that voice to file this complaint. Comments on this one hit deep. The premeditation is what gets me. He's choosing his moments. He's aware he's alone with you. He's timing it. That's not joking. That's someone testing your boundaries and enjoying that you're uncomfortable. This made my skin crawl reading it. The way he's singling you out, the timing, doing it when witnesses can't see, the gaslighting when you asked him to stop. This is predatory behavior. I really hope HR takes it seriously. That's the land stories like this occupy. Not the neat victory where everything works out. The messier truth where you act despite fear. Where your voice gets heard because you documented the damage. Where there's usually someone else behind you who suffered the same thing. Where gaslighting works specifically because it convinces you that nobody will believe the obvious truth. And then, when you finally say it out loud to someone with authority, they immediately do. That is the last story for today.